You never think about trust until it's gone. It operates quietly beneath every friendship, every partnership, every team you depend on. But the moment someone breaks it, your brain responds as though you're under genuine threat. The psychology of how trust is built is slow, almost invisible. How it's lost is immediate. And the distance between those two processes explains why some relationships survive betrayal and others never recover. Psychologists define trust as a calculated judgment made under conditions of uncertainty, rather than a blind belief. It pairs a positive expectation about another person's future behavior with a deliberate willingness to accept vulnerability and risk. In 1995, researcher Daniel McAllister showed that this social calculation operates on two distinct channels. The first is cognitive trust, which is grounded in objective evidence of competence, reliability, and professional track record. It is the practical assurance that a colleague possesses the necessary expertise to deliver a complex project on schedule. The second is affective trust, which rests on emotional safety and the confidence that another person genuinely cares about our well-being and will not exploit our vulnerability. These twin dimensions carry different weights depending on the environment. A high-stakes workplace typically prioritizes cognitive predictability, whereas a personal partnership depends on sustained affective care. These intersecting dimensions serve as the baseline for how trust forms, fractures, and functions across all human relationships. The architecture of credibility is assembled through daily, routine interactions. While grand gestures attract attention, small behaviors are far more diagnostic of long-term trust. A 2023 study analyzing communication patterns found that simple acts, like returning a missed call promptly, predict relationship stability more strongly than large-scale generosity. In regression models tracking trust durability, the response latency of a returned call carried a standardized beta of 0.3 compared to just 0.12 for major favors. Prompt responses to ordinary commitments are powerful because they signal availability and presence. Meta-analytic data shows that routine reliability, simply following through on small daily promises, accounts for roughly 30% of the variance in trust outcomes, whereas one-off acts of goodwill explain only 12%. This behavioral pattern relies on four foundational elements. First, consistency means showing up the same way often enough that another person can accurately predict your actions. Second, honesty means telling the truth before someone else has to discover it. When a partner admits a budgeting mistake early, or a manager delivers promised performance feedback, it gives the relationship room to absorb the error and prevents silent erosion. Third, reliability serves as the most literal signal of trust because a promise is immediately followed by action. This predictability is especially important after initial goodwill has already been granted. Fourth, trust strengthens through calibrated vulnerability or strategic self-disclosure. Sharing personal information helps build emotional safety, but only when matched to the current stage of the relationship. Sharing something modest but sincere lowers uncertainty and invites cooperation, whereas oversharing too quickly can feel premature. Whether it is a friend returning a call, a partner admitting a mistake, or a colleague sharing a modest, sincere reflection, these daily actions are highly diagnostic. Together, these quiet, repeated choices form the steady foundation of credibility, far outlasting the temporary impact of flashy proof. When a partner suddenly acts selfishly, the brain does not register the event as a simple mistake. Instead, it triggers a prediction error signal, the stark gap between expected and actual outcomes. In the brain's reward centers, the caudate nucleus tracks this social disappointment, marking a sudden drop in expectations. Because of a hardwired negativity bias, the human mind weights these social breaches far more heavily than cooperative ones. This sudden shift activates the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, and the anterior insula, which processes feelings of disgust and social pain. At the same time, the endocrine system releases cortisol, a stress hormone that sharpens focus and reinforces the memory of the threat, while vasopressin rises to fuel defensive vigilance and mental rumination. Because bonding-related chemistry and threat circuitry are forced to operate around the very same person, the internal conflict is intense. This physiological spike increases the emotional salience of the event, helping the brain cement the details of the breach. Ultimately, a single betrayal can instantly alter future expectations, leaving a lasting imprint that changes how we evaluate safety in other relationships. The abstract rules of reliability translate into distinct consequences depending on the social arena. In personal friendships, trust often serves as a private vault. When a friend shares a confidential journal entry or personal secret, they are trading privacy for emotional closeness. If that confidentiality is breached, the immediate consequence is not physical danger, but the sudden collapse of personal safety. The friendship quickly shifts from a sanctuary to a source of exposure. In the workplace, the dynamics of dependence operate under different structural rules. Here, trust is tied to career progression and organizational fairness. Consider a senior engineer whose manager takes credit for a patent the engineer authored. This broken promise does more than damage a single career path. It fractures the psychological safety of the entire department. Performance and the willingness to collaborate drop when employees realize that effort and reward are decoupled. Romantic partnerships carry a different emotional weight altogether. When exclusivity or emotional commitment is violated through infidelity, the betrayal strikes at the shared identity of the couple. The power balance is severely skewed, leaving one partner to reevaluate years of shared history through a lens of deception. In high-stakes professional settings, like surgical units or aviation crews, trust is a matter of physical survival. An unreliable team member who fails to execute a standard protocol, such as a preoperative timeout, instantly compromises collective safety. To prevent these localized failures, institutional environments rely on structural backstops. Rather than relying solely on interpersonal goodwill, organizations implement transparent processes, structured after action debriefs, and rigid role clarity to sustain coordination under pressure. In each of these settings, the power to respond and the path to restoration are dictated by the rules of the environment itself. When trust is broken, repair is not a matter of simply moving past the event, but of following a structured, step-by-step process of behavioral reconstruction. The sequence begins with clear acknowledgement. The person who broke the trust must name the breach specifically, accepting full responsibility without minimizing the damage or offering vague regret. Next comes a credible apology. This step requires pairing empathy for the victim's experience with a concrete commitment to prevent future harm. Where the damage can be measured, restitution must follow, providing practical compensation or corrective action. But words and immediate actions are only the beginning. The most decisive factor is demonstrable behavioral change sustained over months, which provides far stronger evidence of reform than intense, short-term emotional displays. When goodwill has been exhausted, external accountability structures or third-party verification can provide a neutral system to monitor compliance. This empirical path does not guarantee reconciliation, but it defines the necessary conditions under which trust can slowly be rebuilt. Yet, the path of behavioral reconstruction has definitive limits. When a relationship is defined by repeated violations without genuine change, attempts at restoration often fail. In cases of abuse, exploitation, or severe power imbalances that block accountability, continuing to pursue repair exposes the injured party to ongoing risk. Ongoing deception and an absence of remorse indicate that the baseline conditions for interpersonal safety no longer exist. In these scenarios, clinical guidelines prioritize the betrayed person's stability over any effort to reconcile. Rebuilding trust ceases to be the objective. Instead, the focus shifts to establishing firm boundaries, recognizing that permanent separation is often the only safe outcome. Ultimately, trust remains a deliberate exposure to risk. In an unpredictable world, safety is not found in isolation, but in the calculated courage to rely on others. It is a fragile, daily choice. How will you navigate that vulnerability? Share your thoughts below.